Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood. Today we'll be diving into the incredible lives of some truly amazing people from history. But before we get started, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. The Mona Lisa is one of the best protected artworks on the planet today. But in the early 20th century, it was stolen by a man who simply walked out of the museum with it under his cloak. Could that possibly be true? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is audacity. A-U-D-A-C-I-T-Y. Audacity is defined as a willingness to take surprisingly bold risks or to say or do something surprising or shocking. It often implies a disregard for conventions or rules. Think of it as a daring spirit, a boldness that can either be seen as courageous or impudent depending on the context. The word audacity has its roots in the Latin word audacia, which itself comes from audax, meaning bold or daring. Interestingly, the initial connotations of audax weren't always positive. It could also imply rashness or recklessness. Over time, the English word audacity has retained this duality, often highlighting actions that are both brave and perhaps a little outrageous. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about some unbelievable people from history. Number 1. Robert Smalls, an enslaved man, executed a daring escape by stealing a Confederate Navy transport ship and sailing his family and other enslaved people to freedom during the American Civil War. Robert Smalls was working on a Confederate steamship, CSS Planter in Charleston Harbor. He had meticulously observed the routines of the white officers and learned how to navigate the waterways. On the night of May 12, 1862, while the officers were ashore, Smalls and a group of other enslaved people decided to seize their opportunity. Smalls donned the captain's hat to disguise himself and expertly steered the ship past Confederate checkpoints, even mimicking the captain's mannerisms and whistle signals. Under the cover of darkness, Smalls navigated the Planter through the heavily fortified harbor, a feat of incredible courage and skill. He knew the secret signals and used them to pass by Confederate sentinels without raising suspicion. Once out of range of Confederate guns, Smalls raised the white flag, signaling their surrender to the Union blockade fleet. His brave act not only freed himself and his family, but also provided valuable intelligence and a useful vessel for Union forces, making him a celebrated hero. Number 2. Timothy Dexter, an unschooled and eccentric businessman, amassed a huge fortune by making unconventional and seemingly foolish business decisions, like selling bed warmers to the tropics. Against all logical advice, Dexter once bought a large quantity of bed warmers, which were essentially pans filled with hot coals used to warm beds in cold climates. Instead of trying to sell them in New England, he shipped them to the West Indies. By sheer luck, or perhaps some shrewd or unorthodox understanding of the market, the bed warmers were in demand, not for warming beds, but for use in the molasses industry. Sugar plantation owners found them ideal for straining molasses, and Dexter sold his entire stock at a significant profit. This was just one instance of Dexter's bizarrely successful ventures. He also made a fortune buying up large quantities of whale bones, which were considered worthless at the time. But after the fashion industry suddenly embraced whalebone for corset stays, Dexter found himself holding a highly valuable commodity. His story seemingly proves the old adage that it's sometimes better to be lucky than good. Or you might say unconventional thinking, coupled with a bit of luck, can lead to unexpected success, even if it defies all conventional wisdom. Number 3. A Japanese engineer named Tsutomu Yamaguchi holds the unbelievable distinction of having survived the atomic bombings of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On August 6, 1945, Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip for his employer Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. He was about 2 miles from ground zero when the first atomic bomb was dropped. The blast ruptured his eardrums, gave him temporary blindness, and inflicted severe burns on the left side of his body. Despite his injuries, he and 2 colleagues spent the night in an air raid shelter before deciding to take the train back to their hometown the next day. Their hometown was Nagasaki. After arriving home, Yamaguchi went to the hospital for his burns and then, on August 9th, reported to his office to tell his supervisor about the horrific blasts in Hiroshima. It was during this very conversation that the second atomic bomb was detonated over Nagasaki. In an almost unbelievable twist of fate, Yamaguchi was once again about 2 miles from ground zero and survived the explosion. The Japanese government officially recognized him as a double survivor, and he became a vocal advocate for nuclear disarmament, sharing his incredible story of resilience up until his passing at the age of 93. Number 4. A former pirate commander named Ching Shih commanded one of the largest pirate fleets in history and was so successful, she was able to negotiate a peaceful retirement with the government. In the early 1800s, a woman named Ching Shih took command of a massive pirate confederation known as the Red Flag Fleet. At its peak, her fleet was enormous, consisting of hundreds of ships and commanding tens of thousands of pirates, making it larger than many national navies at the time. To maintain control over such a vast force, she established a strict and detailed code of laws that governed everything from the division of treasure to the treatment of captured towns. This incredible organization and discipline made her fleet an unstoppable force. Ching Shih's fleet was so dominant in South China Sea that they repeatedly defeated naval forces sent by the Chinese government, and even challenged Portuguese and British ships. Realizing they couldn't defeat her in battle, the Chinese government eventually chose to offer her amnesty instead. Ching Shih, a masterful strategist to the very end, negotiated her own surrender, securing a full pardon for herself and her crew, and the right to keep all the wealth they had accumulated. She walked away from a life of piracy as a free and wealthy woman, living out the rest of her days in peace. And our 5th and final fun fact for today: pioneering aviator Lilian Bland became the first woman in the British Isles to design, build, and fly her own aircraft, which she humorously named the Mayfly. In 1910, long before flying was common, a journalist and sportswoman named Lilian Bland decided she wanted to take to the skies. After seeing a postcard of a successful French monoplane, she set to work in her coach house workshop using materials like spruce, bamboo, and canvas. Her design was full of ingenuity and humor. The plane's fuel tank was famously a repurposed whiskey bottle, and she even used her aunt's ear trumpet as a part of the fuel system. She named her creation Mayfly, joking, "It may fly or it may not." After many tests as a glider, Lilian finally fitted the Mayfly with a 20-horsepower engine and prepared for takeoff. In August 1910, in a field in Northern Ireland, she successfully piloted the Mayfly on its first flight, a short but historic bop of about 30 feet. Despite this success, her nervous father bribed her to give up the dangerous hobby by offering to buy her a new car. Lilian agreed, learned to drive, and later even became a car dealer, having already secured her place in aviation history with her homemade airplane. Now for some news you can use. Today's tip centers around learning from the amazing people we've discussed. Their lives demonstrate the power of embracing unconventional thinking. Often the most significant breakthroughs and achievements come from looking at problems from a different angle or challenging established norms. Here are a few strategies you can use to cultivate unconventional thinking in your own life. First, regularly expose yourself to diverse perspectives and ideas by reading widely, engaging in conversations with people who hold different viewpoints, and exploring new hobbies or subjects. Second, practice brainstorming without judgment. Encourage all ideas, no matter how outlandish they may seem initially. And finally, don't be afraid to question assumptions and challenge the status quo in your own life and work. By cultivating this mindset, you might just stumble upon your own extraordinary solutions and achievements. But also, remember, just because it's unconventional doesn't mean it's wise. While it's good to brainstorm and think about all of these different possibilities, you also need to think critically about whether the proposed solutions and different ideas are actually good and worth implementing. While embracing unconventional thinking can lead to great breakthroughs, simply being contrarian for the sake of being different is not always a great idea. Now for the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked, is it possible that Mona Lisa was stolen by someone simply walking out of the Louvre with it under their cloak? That's a fact. On August 21st, 1911, an Italian handyman named Vincenzo Peruggia, who had ironically been hired by the Louvre to build protective glass cases for some of its most valuable artworks, he committed the crime. He simply hid in a closet, and when the museum was closed, he lifted the painting off the wall, removed it from its frame, and tucked it under his work smock. When the museum opened in the morning, he simply walked out. The museum security didn't even realize the world's most famous painting was gone for pretty much an entire day. The first person to notice that the Mona Lisa was missing was actually a painter named Louis Perrault. He arrived at the museum and he had come to make a satirical painting of someone staring at their own reflection in the Mona Lisa's new protective glass as a way of protesting that the art was becoming harder to view. Only he couldn't make his painting about how he couldn't see the Mona Lisa because he couldn't see the Mona Lisa. There was an empty space on the wall, and he alerted a guard who just assumed it had been taken to be photographed. It took until the end of the day to realize that there was an actual theft. The Mona Lisa remained missing for 2 years before Peruggia was finally caught trying to sell it in Italy. And if you want to learn more about that wild theft, I'll put a link in the show notes. I did an entire episode talking to the author of The Mona Lisa Vanishes. It is a wild story. I hope you enjoyed this whole collection of wild stories from history. Be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.